Welcome, everyone. My name is Meredith Matherly. I am one of your career coaches for American Public University System. And today I am covering part three of our four-part series on utilizing artificial intelligence for our job search and our applications. So mine specifically covers upgrading our resumes with AI, but doing it the right way. A lot of people nowadays were asking, should I use AI for my resume? And to me, it's not a, yes or no. It's all about the how we use it. So I want to touch on ways today that we can effectively and ethically use AI to upgrade our resumes. We'll do that by going over some best practices, general AI tips and prompt examples. And then we'll look at a couple tools that the university offers and best ways to use those to your advantage. So before we begin, we often get the question and we see job postings out there nowadays that say, don't use AI when applying. And I want you to keep in mind this usually means don't let AI write your resume for you. It doesn't typically mean that you can't use it for ideas, tailoring suggestions, or a program that offers templates like we have with Hydration with the university that we'll look at shortly. Because AI really can be a helpful tool if you're the one that stays in control. The big problem that we're seeing and the reason that, hiring recruiters and officials are saying not to use AI is that we get so many of these generic resumes flooding the market. Millions of job seekers are just copying job descriptions into AI tools and asking for them to write a resume based on that or to just make their resume better without specific prompts to, again, use more as a tool for ideas. So what results in that is you get these resumes that all start looking the same. They're full of really vague, overused phrases. It doesn't show your personal story, your accomplishments, what makes you unique. It doesn't know that. It's not able to show that itself. That's up to you. So what happens is recruiters, they can spot those AI generated resumes quickly, and that might turn them off. The lack of authenticity and context and personality, it doesn't help you stand out. You're no longer, compelling or memorable. So let's start by talking about a few best practices for using AI ethically. And then again, we'll go into a demo portion of this by looking at some of the tools and prompts that we can use to help strengthen our resume. So I really encourage you, number one, to start with self-reflection. Build your own draft of your resume. Look at your goals, your accomplishments, quantifiable data, your previous jobs, and you work on writing that master resume first. Everything that you're proud of, all your different jobs that you have that might be able to relate to a position you're applying for in the future. So put all of that down into a document. And then what AI can do is it can help you refine things for that tailoring piece, but it's not going to be about replacing. We got to have that initial authentic content, keeping your voice, keeping your accomplishments and what you're proud of. That's only you can do. So make sure to use AI as a collaborator. It can be like a great editor for us, a brainstorming partner. We can ask it for clarity, tone, or formatting, but we want to make sure it's not fabricating experiences. So that's going to go along with keeping it honest as well, because AI can't verify facts. So we got to make sure that those prompts that we're going to be using are really specific to avoid any exaggerations or misleading phrasing that could backfire in an interview or background check. So that's always going to be up to us for the honesty and preserving our unique voice. Any suggestions that it provides when we're using those prompts, look at your original voice, look at your style, and make sure your personality is still shining through. I do love AI for customizing each job, for helping us with tailoring suggestions. It can save so much time when you're looking through these really long job announcements, to help pull out keywords, to help us match our skills to a job, or to see, what are the main qualifications they're looking for? How can I have my resume help match better their mission and values, things like that. So it can be great for tailoring, but again, we never just want to blindly copy what they suggest. And then it's important to also check for bias and tone, both for its results that it gives you, but also, it can even actually check your results. So if you could put your resume into AI and, ask it for more warmth and inclusivity. Um, I do always recommend, whenever we use AI, whenever you have a resume, it's great to have a trusted peer or career coach like ourselves, mentor, review that to make sure it still sounds like your human voice and still authentic. And then the big one that you'll hear us coaches say all the time, you'll read it, I'm sure, is really protecting your privacy is so important. If you do like upload a resume for tailoring or suggestions, make sure to keep any sensitive data off of that resume. Take off your name, your information, and you can just, keep the rest of it that doesn't connect you to it. And also, use trusted platforms or anonymize your content. So just a few best practices to get us started, but the main thing I want to look at some specific prompts and then get into that demo portion. So again, what I mentioned in the last slide is, we can use AI for a lot of different types of prompts and different ways to strengthen our resume. You can see some examples here. It can help us with tailoring it. Again, it's how we write things. So instead of just putting in a job description and saying, tailor my resume to this job, that's where you can sometimes get those exaggerated experience or sometimes completely fabricated, quantifiable data, things like that. Really use those keywords, maintain my authentic voice, keep with factual accuracy of what's already in the resume, um, and be really specific about what you're asking it. You can even use it to mitigate bias, to do voice preservation prompts, like revise this bullet, but still sound like something I'd say in person, like the rest of my resume. And like I said, it can be really great with formatting help. I'll show you hydration later. Again, that has some great templates that you can use, makes it a lot easier to format your resume and make changes, move things around, because I'm sure we're all familiar if you ever made a resume in a Word document on yourself and then trying to move things around or add things later, that format can go crazy. So just a few different ways that AI can help with your resume updating and tailoring, as long as, again, we're using very specific, smart, ethical prompts. So this is where we'll get into the demo portion of this chat. I'm going to pull up some sites over here. So the main thing we're going to look at today, two things. We're going to look at Copilot and hydration. Again, both of these are available through the university. Now, Copilot is currently just available if you are an active student with American Public University System. You can access it through your Microsoft Office 365 suite. In your classroom, you can see where it's available here. It's going to be one of your apps in there, and you'll have access to Copilot as a student. Now, of course, there are plenty of other free AI tools out there that are very similar, so you might have your favorite. I'm not saying this is the only one to use, but since our university uses that and it's what it's available to as a student, that's why I'm recommending it and showing it to you today. And then hydration will be the other one. But let's go ahead and start with Copilot. Now, like I said, this is the third part of a four-part AI series. If you missed the first one, it's all about using and creating agents within Copilot. So I'm using my career coach agent, and feel free to go back with Coach Stacy and watch that if you want to learn about creating agents. It's pretty interesting. But like I said, we're going to use some specific prompts to practice and see what these how AI, how Copilot specifically can help our resume. So I'm going to pull up some prompts that I got ready ahead of time here. Again, very specific. So you can see this first one, I'm asking it to analyze my resume for a specific job. But again, I'm not just saying make my resume better based on this job. I'm asking it for specific ways to tailor it to the company's values and mission while maintaining my authentic voice and factual accuracy. So how I can do this is I have my prompt, and then I found a job before this that I just thought sounded interesting with the Girl Scouts, kind of related to some things I've done in the past and some current. So I can take that whole job description, paste it in here, and then what I can also do, either you can copy and paste your resume again without that private data, or I'm going to upload it already saved. And so it's going to be able to know that I'm using my resume and this job post, and I can just see what results come up. And what I love about Copilot, it doesn't automatically just say, change your resume to this. It reviews it. It's going to look at things that already align well. But again, it all is based on your prompt. So um, this helps, give those different sections here based on what I asked it. So it went over what already aligns well with their mission and values based on what was in their job description and my resume. And then it gives me some pieces where it says, actually, here's some gaps or opportunities to tailor. So again, I'm not copy and pasting anything. It was just a big time saver. It looked at it for me. I can now think, okay, maybe I need to add some things in more about um, leading generation development, collaborating with teams, tracking, things like that. So it also gives tailoring suggestions. Now, again, this is where I recommend not necessarily copy and pasting directly. Sometimes if it sounds okay, but this is sometimes where if you copy and paste it directly, it can start sounding a little repetitive, a little generic. So I always like just taking those suggestions and doing my own voice as much as possible. All right, so that was an example of, matching it to some mission and values. Let's get another one here. Now it already has our resume and the job description, so we can just ask our next prompt. And this one, I'm going to ask it to compare my current skills that I have on my resume and the experience to the requirements listed in the job description. And I can ask it to highlight areas of strong alignment and then look for any gaps again. And I always like adding this little extra, using transparent and honest language. So again, that helps us keep away from the fabricating part or the exaggerating. So it usually is really quick. It comes up with those answers so quickly. Again, right away, it showed us where we have strong alignment with our skills and experience, breaking it down into main different categories. And then based on that description again, it points out some potential gaps to address. So maybe we need to do a little more talking about metrics and data, direct sales, technology. Now, of course, if this is not something you have any experience in, you're just not going to be able to speak to some parts of a job description sometimes. We never want to make things up, exaggerate. That can come back and get us later for sure. It even provides that some wording for that cover letter. So this topic is on resumes, but obviously AI can be great for helping write a cover letter as well, using specific prompts for that too, just like we did. So many things that it can be helpful for. The session before mine, Ro went over how it can really help us with our job search process. I encourage you to check that one out too. Okay, I'm going to do one more in this and then we're going to bump over to hydration. Now, I really like this one because how many times have you heard a career coach or you've heard it just written that you should add quantifiable data to your resume? And sometimes that's easy where we are in roles where we can quickly, come up with numbers. I moved this much material. I increased customer satisfaction by this much percent. But other times we're in roles where it's harder to quantify that. I work with people. Well, okay, how do I quantify that? So I like this prompt here because I said I'm struggling to quantify my impact in my role as a career coach. I gave it my responsibilities. These are some of the things I currently do. Can you suggest potential metrics or quantifiable achievements that are relevant to this type of role, which I will then verify for accuracy? Again, the ethical piece of it. So this is why I love this so much because it's not saying rewrite my bullet points to include quantifiable data, because that's when it might make up numbers or um, just make things up. So what instead it does is it gives me ideas for where I can look to consider quantifiable data. And it prompts me to brainstorm better. So, okay, yeah, I could look at my student engagement and reach. How many students do I coach individually? A week, a month, a year? How many workshops or group sessions have I delivered? How many attended? All these different categories it breaks down for me, survey, quality, satisfaction. Right, we do surveys. I can look at that information. So it's great for brainstorming. Again, it's super times efficient and just helps in so many ways, as long as you're still keeping your voice and you're the one applying these brainstorming techniques, and then you're writing it yourself. So lots of different examples. This is just a couple. You can look up more, you can brainstorm more. You could ask one prompt like this and then go deeper. Tell me more about this, and so many options. So just to get you started with a few. Now, like I said, the other thing I wanted to show you was hydration, because hydration is the tool that's available to both our students and alumni. You can access this through CareerLink, through your eCampus. Again, it's included for students. It helps build a resume, cover letters, and even provides LinkedIn reviews. So trying out hydration, when you get to it, if you haven't used it before, we do have quite a few other videos on YouTube, our Career Services YouTube channel, that go into more depth. So we're not giving a full-on hydration tutorial today, but there are those videos available if you'd like that. But for creating a resume and making it stronger in hydration, when you're ready to do so, you can either upload an existing resume, or if you don't have one that's already really strong and tailored to a specific industry, you can create a new one either from scratch with a blank template, or we do have some that have some pre-filled information connected to a specific industry. Now, again, this is where that ethical part comes in, and the piece of making sure that it keeps your voice is that you can start with one of those templates just to have it laid out. But you, of course, want to then use your voice to write those experience bullet points and keep your story going. So once you upload a resume, it's going to look something like this. I do love to recommend either using the basic or simple or whatever is the really ATS, applicant tracking system friendly, black and white, simple templates. That's what we recommend using. So here's an example. I'm going to show two examples real quick. One is a resume that I wrote. Again, it's a little more personal. I wrote it first, and then I used AI a little bit for suggestions. You can see that I mentioned accomplishments, things that I initiated within my last job, promotions, work collaboration with specific groups, and numbers and quantifiable data. But it is very personal, and it doesn't read super generic or that really common vague language and things like that. So what I did was, like I said, I wrote it first and then I used hydration to improve it with some additional suggestions. Um, but I wanted to show the difference because here's this one, and then you can look at this one that's more created from AI from scratch. So it didn't so much as use a authentic voice initially. It just started with AI. And then to me, this is where you can see it kind of starts sounding a little more generic. Anyone could have written, and almost any position could have had these bullets because it doesn't have too many accomplishments specific to a person. Um, it mostly just talks about the duties. Now, there is some quantifiable data because that's the other thing I wanted to point out with hydration is that it will help you create that quantifiable data, but this is where I really recommend being careful because hydration does recommend, use quantifiable data all the time if you can, but be careful with that because we don't want it to start sounding like every bullet's the exact same. It starts to maybe raise some red flags. How does this person know all of these percentages? Maybe you do, um, but if you don't, that could look really bad if they start asking you about them. But here's an example of how you can use ChatGPT within hydration to improve a bullet. You can see if it's yellow or red, it might provide some suggestions. We have a really simple bullet here, worked on organizing files. Okay, that doesn't tell us too much. Is there a way we can improve that a bit? And this is where I really recommend keeping your voice. So it's going to give you some prompts. What was the impact of organizing those files? Did it save time for a team, improve data accessibility, enhance workflow efficiency? Think about this. I encourage you to write your own answer or just look at these prompts and then rewrite your bullet based on some of the ideas they give. If this is true, you can pick one of these, but otherwise you'd probably want to write something. Now I'm going to, for sake of time, I'm just going to pick one of these just to show you what it can do. It's going to ask you maybe like what tools were used. Let's say that we organized with Microsoft and SharePoint. And then we're going to submit and see how it changes that up. All right, so we have a much more detailed bullet, how we streamlined, what we used, and what was the result. It saved time and enhanced productivity. So it did make it a stronger bullet, but again, if you do all of your bullets with just ChatGPT and not have that initial voice, they just will start sounding really similar. So that's my advice for hydration, that part of it at least, is just be careful, use it responsibly and use it, maybe, don't overuse it, in other words. All right. But like I said, lots available videos on YouTube, more on hydration to get those details. Okay. To wrap up here, just first, thank you for attending. Taking the time out of your day. Like I said, this is part of 4 series, so I hope you can check out the other ones. And when you are using AI, again, just think about some main key facts for your resume when you use it. Did you verify the facts? Does it still sound like you? Does it keep your voice? Is it tailored for the job? And did you respect those ethical guidelines? We have lots of events going on all the time in CareerLink. I hope you can sign up for some future ones. Check out the ones we already have recorded on our YouTube channel. And thanks so much for joining and hope to see you again at a future event. And have a great day.